The red giant star hung in space like a massive orange eye, watching the small research station that orbited in its shadow. Dr. Elena Martinez pressed her face against the observation window, staring at the dying star that had drawn her team across half the galaxy. The star was old, maybe 10 billion years old, and it was slowly eating itself from the inside out. Elena, you need to see this. Dr. Ben Cooper's voice cracked with excitement from across the lab. He stood hunched over, a scanning device, his hands shaking as he adjusted the controls. The readings from the crystal are off the charts. Elena turned away from the window and walked to where Ben worked. The crystal sat on the examination table like a piece of frozen lightning. It was the size of a small car and seemed to pulse with its own inner light. They had found it 3 days ago, floating in the asteroid belt around the dying star. It was unlike anything they had ever seen before. What kind of readings? Elena asked, pulling up a chair next to Ben. Energy signatures. That shouldn't exist. This thing is generating power, but not from any source we can identify. It's like it's pulling energy from somewhere else entirely. Ben wiped sweat from his forehead. Elena, I think this crystal is older than the star itself. Lieutenant Commander Jake Sullivan walked into the lab, his military boots making sharp sounds on the metal floor. He had been a Navy pilot before joining the research team, and he still carried himself like a soldier. Dr. Martinez, we just received a priority message from Earth Command. They want a full report on the artifact within 24 hours. Elena nodded but kept her eyes on the crystal. Something about it bothered her, like an itch she couldn't scratch. The crystal seemed to be waiting for something. Jake, have you noticed anything strange about the station's system since we brought the crystal aboard? Now that you mention it, the power grid has been running at 110% efficiency. Engineering can't explain it. Jake moved closer to the examination table. Why? Do you think the crystal is affecting our systems? Before Elena could answer, the crystal began to glow brighter. The light wasn't harsh or blinding. Instead, it felt warm and welcoming, like sunlight on a spring morning. The 3 scientists stepped back as the glow intensified. Should we evacuate the section? Jake asked, his hand moving to the emergency alarm. Wait. Elena held up her hand. Look at the energy readings. They're not dangerous. They're organized, like someone is trying to communicate. The crystal's glow reached its peak, and suddenly the lab filled with a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. It spoke in perfect English, though Elena somehow knew it was translating itself into their language. At last, the inheritors have found me. Elena, Ben, and Jake stared at the crystal in shock. Elena was the first to find her voice. Who are you? I am Kethvar, last of the architects. I have waited 3 million years for your species to develop enough to understand my message. The voice was calm and ancient, like an old man remembering stories from his childhood. You carry the genetic markers of our chosen successors. You are the ones we prepared for. Ben's scientific mind kicked into gear. Architects? What are architects? We were the builders of worlds, the shapers of stars. We created the foundations upon which your galaxy rests. And now, as we foresaw, you face the same threat that once destroyed us. Jake stepped forward, his military training making him focus on the potential danger. What threat? The Galactic Dominion. 7 species united in their fear of evolution, of change, of anyone who might grow beyond their control. They have spent 1 million years hunting down and destroying any race that shows the potential to ascend beyond their primitive limitations. Elena felt a chill run down her spine. Are you saying they're coming for us? They are already on their way. Your species has advanced too quickly, learned too much, reached too far. The Dominion fears what you might become, so they have decided you must be eliminated. The crystal's glow shifted, becoming more focused, more intense. Elena could feel something changing in the air around them, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks. However, you are not defenseless. The genetic code we planted in your species millions of years ago can be awakened. You can inherit our power, our knowledge, our ability to reshape reality itself. What kind of power? Ben asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The power to command the forces that bind atoms together. The power to reach across space and touch the hearts of stars. The power to turn the very fabric of space-time into your tool and your weapon. Elena felt drawn to the crystal as if it was calling to her specifically. What's the cost? The awakening is painful. Your minds must expand to comprehend concepts that no human has ever understood. Your bodies must adapt to channel energies that could destroy lesser beings. Some do not survive the process. Jake grabbed Elena's arm. Elena, this is insane. We don't know what this thing really is or what it wants from us. But Elena was already moving toward the crystal. She could feel it pulling at something deep, inside her, something that had been sleeping her entire life. The Dominion is coming whether we accept this power or not. At least this gives us a chance to fight back. She reached out and touched the crystal's surface. The moment her fingers made contact, pain exploded through her body. It felt like every nerve ending was on fire, like her brain was being rewired with lightning. She screamed, but she didn't pull her hand away. Images flooded her mind. She saw the rise and fall of the architects, their war against the Dominion's predecessors, their final decision to seed the galaxy with the potential for their return. She saw Earth as it was 1,000,000 years ago, and the subtle changes the architects had made to ensure humanity would one day inherit their legacy. The pain reached a crescendo and then suddenly stopped. Elena staggered backward, her vision blurry, her hands shaking. But she could feel the change inside her. She could sense the quantum structure of the atoms around her, feel the gravitational pull of the red giant star, perceive the electromagnetic fields that flowed through the station's systems. Elena! Ben caught her as she stumbled. Are you all right? She looked at her hands and saw them glowing with the same soft light as the crystal. I can see it, she whispered. I can see how it all fits together. Jake was already reaching for the emergency communicator. I'm calling for medical assistance. No, Elena said, her voice stronger now. Call Earth Command. Tell them the Dominion is coming and we need to prepare for war. The crystal's glow began to fade, but Kethvar's voice remained clear. The awakening has begun. Soon, others of your kind will feel the call. The galaxy will learn to fear the name of humanity, for you are the inheritors of the architects, and the stars themselves will serve as your weapons. Elena stood straighter, feeling power flowing through her like electricity through copper wire. The dying red giant outside the station seemed different now. Not just a star, but a tool waiting to be used. The Dominion thought they were coming to destroy a weak, primitive species. They were about to discover just how wrong they were. The emergency session of the United Earth Council had been going for 6 hours. President Victoria Hayes sat at the head of the massive conference table, her face pale as she listened to the reports flooding in from across human space. The quantum communication network was burning with panic signals from every colony, every station, every ship. Madam President, we've lost contact with the Outer Rim colonies. Admiral Jack Morrison reported from his position at the War Room display. Red dots marked the locations where human settlements had simply vanished from the communication grid. Titan Base went dark 4 hours ago. Europa Station stopped transmitting 2 hours after that. General Kate Phillips leaned forward in her chair. What about the defense fleet? Can we get ships out there to investigate? Our fastest ships are still 18 hours away from the outer colonies, Morrison replied. By the time they arrive, whatever happened will be long over. Victoria rubbed her temples, feeling the weight of 7 billion lives pressing down on her shoulders. What exactly are we dealing with? The reports from the Meridian Station sound like science fiction. Dr. Sarah Kim, the Council's chief science advisor, pulled up a holographic display showing Elena's transmission. The quantum signatures are real, Madam President. Dr. Martinez and her team have been exposed to technology that operates on principles we don't understand. The energy readings suggest manipulation of fundamental forces. And this Dominion she mentioned? Victoria asked. If the entity calling itself Kethvar is telling the truth, we're facing a coalition of 7 alien species with military technology thousands of years ahead of our own, Sarah said. Their fleet strength is estimated at over 10,000 ships. The Room fell silent. Humanity's entire space navy consisted of 200 ships, most of them designed for exploration and cargo transport, not warfare. "How long do we have?" Victoria asked. Admiral Morrison checked his tactical display. "Based on the attack patterns on our outer colonies, we estimate the main fleet will reach Earth orbit within 72 hours. Meanwhile, 300 light years away, High Commander Zethkalar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The ship was 5 kilometers long and bristled with weapons that could crack planets. Around it, the combined fleet of the Galactic Dominion stretched across space like a metallic ocean. "Report on the human colonies," Zethkalar ordered. Sub-Commander Vexthar, a insectoid being with 4 arms and silver skin, stepped forward. "The outer settlements have been eliminated as ordered. 50,000 humans eliminated with minimal resistance. Their defensive systems were primitive. And their response? The remaining colonies are attempting to evacuate. Their military ships are moving to defensive positions around their home world." Vexthar's mandibles clicked in what passed for amusement among his species. They appear to be preparing for a conventional space battle. Zethkalar nodded. The Vorthan commander had led 100 campaigns of extermination against primitive species. Humans would be no different from the others. They would fight with courage and determination, and they would die. "Prepare the broadcast array," he ordered. "It is time to deliver the Dominion's final offer." Back on Earth, the transmission came, through on every communication channel simultaneously. The alien face that appeared on screens across the planet was humanoid, but clearly not human. Zethkalar's skin was dark blue, his eyes were solid black, and when he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone who had never been disobeyed. "Humans of Earth, I am High Commander Zethkalar of the Galactic Dominion. Your species has been judged a threat to galactic stability. You have acquired technology that violates the natural order. You have begun to evolve beyond your designated limitations." Victoria watched the broadcast from the council chambers, her hands clenched into fists. "Therefore the Dominion offers you this choice," Zethkalar continued. "Surrender the architect technology. Submit to Dominion rule. Allow us to place genetic limiters on your species to prevent further evolution. Do this, and you will be permitted to exist as a servant race." The alien commander's expression grew cold. "Refuse, and you will be eliminated. Your colonies are already burning. Your outer defenses have been swept away like dust. You have 48 hours to decide." The transmission ended, leaving Earth in silence. Victoria stood up slowly. "Admiral Morrison, what are our defensive capabilities?" "Honestly, Madam President, against a fleet of 10,000 ships with advanced technology, we might destroy a few dozen of their ships before they overwhelm us." "That's not acceptable," Victoria said firmly. "General Phillips, what about this architect technology? Can we use it?" Kate Phillips consulted her tablet. "We've been running genetic scans based on the data from the Meridian Station. The markers Kethavar mentioned are rare, but they exist. We've identified approximately 700 individuals worldwide who might be capable of awakening." "Might be?" "The process is dangerous, Madam President. Based on Dr. Martinez's experience, we estimate a 30% fatality rate among those who attempt the awakening." Victoria felt the weight of an impossible decision. Ask 700 people to risk their lives for a chance at power they didn't understand, or watch humanity die without a fight. What about Dr. Martinez herself? Can she help us? She's still aboard the Meridian Station, but her latest reports suggest she's learning to control her abilities. Her last transmission mentioned something about reaching out to the star itself. At that moment, alarms began blaring throughout the council chambers. A communications officer rushed in, his face white with shock. "Madam President, we're receiving an emergency transmission from the Kepler 442 system. The entire Dominion scout fleet has been destroyed." Victoria blinked. "What? How many ships?" 200 vessels, Madam President. They were eliminated in less than 10 minutes. The weapon signature indicates directed solar energy. Dr. Martinez somehow turned the red giant star into a weapon. The room erupted in shocked voices. Victoria held up her hand for silence. "Get me a direct line to the Meridian station," she ordered, "and begin the process of identifying and contacting the other potential awakening candidates. If Dr. Martinez can teach others to do what she did, we might have a chance." As the Council prepared for humanity's first interstellar war, Victoria stared out at the night sky. Somewhere out there, a young scientist had just proven that humans could fight back against impossible odds. The stars themselves were becoming weapons in humanity's hands. The Dominion thought they were coming to destroy a weak, primitive species. They had no idea that they were about to face the inheritors of the architects, beings who could reach across space and command the very forces that powered the universe. Elena Martinez had awakened, and she was teaching humanity how to turn the galaxy itself into their weapon. The real war was just beginning, and for the first time since the alien ultimatum, Victoria Hayes allowed herself to hope that humanity might actually survive what was coming. The stars were burning, and humanity was learning to control the fire. Elena Martinez stood in the center of the Meridian Station's main laboratory, her body glowing with soft blue light. Around her, equipment that had taken decades to build was transforming into something entirely new. The metal walls rippled like water, reshaping themselves according to patterns that existed only in her enhanced mind. "Elena, you need to see this," Jake Sullivan called from the communication array. His own body showed the signs of awakening. His reflexes had become impossibly fast, and his eyes now glowed with a faint golden light. "The Dominion's main fleet is 3 days out from Earth. 10,000 ships, just like Kethvar warned us." Ben Cooper looked up from his workstation, where he was somehow manipulating gravitational fields with his bare hands. Small objects floated around him in complex patterns, defying every law of physics he had studied. "The awakening process is accelerating. I can feel other humans beginning to change across the galaxy." Elena nodded, her consciousness stretched across vast distances. She could sense the quantum signatures of humans who carried the architect genes. On Earth, in the Mars colonies, aboard deep space stations, one by one, they were beginning to awaken to their true potential. "How many so far?" she asked. 43 confirmed awakenings in the last 12 hours, Jake reported. "The fatality rate is dropping as more people undergo the process. It's like each awakening makes the next one easier." Elena smiled grimly. That was the architect design at work. The more humans who awakened, the stronger the quantum field became that connected them all. Soon, they would be able to share knowledge and power across any distance. "Elena," Kethavar's voice emerged from the crystal, which had now merged with the station's systems. "The Dominion fleet has detected your attack on their scouts. They are changing course to approach from multiple vectors. They fear what you have become." Elena's enhanced senses reached out across space, touching the edges of the massive alien fleet. She could feel their fear like a cold wind. For 1,000,000 years, the Dominion had been the apex predators of the galaxy. Now they faced something that challenged their absolute dominance. "Good," Elena said. "Let them be afraid." She closed her eyes and expanded her consciousness further, reaching toward the red giant star that hung outside the station. The star was dying, its nuclear furnace stuttering as it consumed the last of its hydrogen fuel. But it still contained more energy than 1,000,000,000 nuclear weapons. Elena touched the star's magnetic field with her mind, feeling the massive forces that contained the stellar plasma. With careful precision, she began to reshape those fields, creating channels that would direct the star's energy where she wanted it to go. "Jake, prepare the ship. We're going to meet the Dominion fleet before they reach Earth." Jake stared at her. "Elena, there are 10,000 ships out there. Even with our new abilities, we're just 3 people." "We're not just 3 people," Elena replied. "We're the first of something new, and we're about to show the galaxy what the inheritors of the architects can do." The station around them continued to transform, growing and reshaping itself into something that was part spaceship, part weapon, part living creature. Elena could feel the architect technology responding to her will, creating a vessel that existed partially outside normal spacetime. 3 days later, the Dominion fleet approached the edge of Earth's solar system. High Commander Zeth Kalar stood on his bridge, studying the tactical displays with growing unease. His sensors showed no sign of human defensive fleets, no indication of military buildup around Earth. "Sub-Commander, report on human activities," he ordered. Vexthar consulted his instruments. "Sir, our long-range scans show only normal civilian traffic around Earth. Their military ships appear to be hiding behind their moon." "And the source of the attack on our scout fleet?" "No sign of the research station, sir. The entire Kepler 442 system appears to be empty now." Zethkalar felt a chill run down his spine. In his experience, when an enemy disappeared, it usually meant they were planning something unpleasant. "Maintain maximum alert status," he ordered. "Deploy screening formations around the main fleet." At that moment, space itself seemed to tear open directly in front of the Dominion fleet. Elena's transformed ship emerged from the rift, its hull gleaming with crystalline structures that hurt to look at directly. The vessel was impossible. It seemed to exist in several dimensions at once, its shape shifting and flowing like living metal. "Sir," Vexthar's voice cracked with shock. "Single ship emerging at 0 distance from the fleet. How did they get past our sensors?" Zethkalar stared at the impossible craft. "Open a communication channel." Elena's face appeared on the main screen, but she looked different now. Her eyes glowed with starlight, and when she spoke, her voice carried the weight of cosmic authority. "High Commander Zethkalar of the Galactic Dominion," she said. "I am Elena Martinez, first of the awakened humans. You have made a mistake." "Have I?" Zethkalar replied, trying to project confidence he didn't feel. "You are one ship against 10,000. I am one human who can touch the hearts of stars," Elena said calmly. "Watch and learn what that means." She closed her eyes, and her consciousness reached out across the solar system, past Mars, past the asteroid belt, to the massive nuclear furnace that powered all life on Earth. The sun was a main sequence star, stable and powerful, containing more energy than all the weapons in the Dominion fleet combined. Elena touched the sun's magnetic field with her enhanced mind, just as she had done with the red giant, but this time, she was more precise, more focused. She created a channel of magnetic force that stretched across 93 million miles of space, guiding the sun's energy toward the Dominion fleet. The solar flare that erupted from the sun's surface was unlike anything in recorded history. Instead of spreading randomly through space, it formed a tight beam of superheated plasma and radiation that lanced directly toward the alien ships. The first wave of Dominion vessels simply vaporized. Their shields, designed to stop conventional weapons, were useless against the focused fury of a star. 1,000 ships died in the first seconds as the solar beam swept through their formations. "Evasive maneuvers!" Zethkalar screamed, but there was nowhere to run. Elena guided the stellar energy with the precision of a surgeon, reaching out to touch ship after ship with destruction, drawn directly from the heart of Earth's sun. In 10 minutes, half the Dominion fleet was gone. The survivors fled in panic, their formation shattered, their confidence broken. Elena opened her eyes and smiled at the communication screen. "Tell your superiors that humanity rejects their ultimatum. Tell them that the inheritors of the architects have awakened, and we will not bow to anyone." She cut the transmission and turned to Jake and Ben, who stared at her in awe. "That was just the beginning," she said. "Now we need to find the other awakened humans and teach them what we've learned. The Dominion will be back, and next time they'll bring everything they have." Elena looked out at the stars, feeling the vast network of human consciousness beginning to form across the galaxy. Soon, every human who carried the architect genes would awaken. Soon, humanity would take its place as the galaxy's guardians. The stars themselves were becoming humanity's weapons, and the real war was just beginning. Dr. Lisa Chang felt the awakening hit her like lightning while she was working late in the Beijing Observatory. One moment she was studying pulsar emissions, and the next moment she could feel every star in the galaxy burning in her mind. The pain lasted for 3 hours, but when it ended she understood things about the universe that no human had ever known before. She was not alone. Across Earth and the human colonies, more people were awakening every day. Commander Ryan Adams, felt the change while leading a patrol near Jupiter. Dr. Sam Wilson awakened in his laboratory on Mars. Teacher Mary Johnson discovered her new abilities while helping children in a school on Europa. Each awakening made the next one easier. The quantum field that connected all awakened humans grew stronger with every person who joined it. Elena Martinez had been the first, but now she was becoming the center of a network that spanned light years. Elena's ship, which she now called Prometheus Rising, hung in space near Earth's moon. She had spent the last week teaching other awakened humans how to control their new abilities through the quantum connection they all shared. "Lisa, can you feel the pulsar in the Crab Nebula?" Elena asked, her consciousness reaching across space to touch the mind of the astronomer in Beijing. "Yes," Lisa's voice came through both the communication system and the quantum link. "It's like a lighthouse spinning and sending out beams of energy. I can sense the pattern, the timing. Good. Now reach out to it with your mind. Don't try to control it yet. Just touch it with your consciousness." Lisa closed her eyes and extended her awareness across the 6,000 light years that separated Earth from the Crab Nebula. The pulsar was the corpse of a massive star, crushed down to a ball of neutrons only 20 kilometers wide, but containing more mass than the sun. It spun 30 times per second, sending out beams of radiation that swept across space like a cosmic lighthouse. "I can feel it," Lisa whispered. "The rotation, the magnetic field, the energy bursts." "Now watch what happens when we work together," Elena said. Elena and Lisa joined their consciousness through the quantum link, combining their power. Together, they reached out to the pulsar and made a tiny adjustment to its magnetic field. The change was microscopic, but it had a massive effect. The pulsar's energy beam shifted by a fraction of a degree. 12 hours later, that beam struck the Dominion military base on Arcturus Prime with the force of 1,000,000 nuclear weapons. The base and everything within 100 kilometers simply ceased to exist. News of the attack spread through Dominion space like wildfire. High Commander Zeth Kalar received the report while his damaged fleet regrouped in the Vega system. Half his ships were gone, destroyed by Elena's solar attack, and the survivors were demoralized and afraid. "Sir," Sub-Commander Vexthar reported, his voice shaking. "The humans have attacked Arcturus Prime. They used a pulsar as a weapon. The entire base is gone." Zeth Kalar stared at the tactical display in disbelief. Arcturus Prime was 40 light-years from Earth. How could the humans reach that far with their weapons? What about our other bases? "We've ordered evacuations of all facilities within 50 light-years of known pulsar sources," Vexthar replied. "But sir, that includes most of our forward operating bases in this sector." Zeth Kalar felt fear creeping into his mind. For 1,000,000 years, the Dominion had been the masters of the galaxy. They decided which species lived and which died. Now, they were running from a single primitive world. "Contact the High Council," he ordered. "Request immediate reinforcement all available fleets." "Sir, that would mean mobilizing over 100,000 ships." "Do it," Zeth Kalar snapped. "The humans have power we don't understand. We need to destroy them before they learn to use it fully." Back on Earth, Elena felt the ripples of fear spreading through Dominion space. Through the quantum network, she shared what she sensed with the other awakened humans. "They're calling for reinforcements," she told the group during one of their mental conferences. "We've scared them, but that makes them even more dangerous." Commander Ryan Adams, orbiting Jupiter in his enhanced patrol ship, spoke through the link. "How many more humans are awakening?" "Over 300 now," Elena replied. "The process is accelerating. I estimate we'll have 1,000 awakened humans within the next week." Dr. Sam Wilson joined the conversation from his lab on Mars. "Elena, I've been studying the architect technology in our ships. I think I understand how to create new vessels from raw matter. We could build a fleet." "That's exactly what we need to do," Elena agreed. "But first we need to send a message to the galaxy. Other species need to know that humanity won't be destroyed easily." Elena reached out through space with her enhanced senses, feeling for the nearest Dominion world. She found it orbiting a blue giant star called Rigel. The planet was called Kethmore, home to 20 billion Vorthons. It was Zeth Kalar's species, homeworld. "What are you planning?" Lisa asked through the quantum link. I'm going to show them mercy, Elena replied. And I'm going to make sure they understand what that mercy cost them. Elena extended her consciousness across the 400 light-years to Rigel. The blue giant was young and hot, burning through its fuel at a fantastic rate. Its magnetic field was chaotic and powerful, much harder to control than the stable field of Earth's sun. But Elena was no longer the frightened scientist who had first touched Kethfar's crystal. She had been practicing, learning, growing stronger every day. With careful precision, she began to manipulate Rigel's magnetic field. On Kethmore, the night sky suddenly blazed with color. Aurora displays unlike anything in the planet's history danced across the atmosphere. The lights were visible even during the day, painting the sky in shades of blue and green and gold. The display lasted for 6 hours. Every Vorthon on the planet saw it. More importantly, every Vorthon understood what it meant. The humans could have destabilized Rigel entirely, turning their star into a weapon that would have killed every living thing in the system. Instead, they had created something beautiful. The message was clear. Humanity had the power to destroy Kethmore, but chose not to use it. Elena opened a communication channel that reached every Dominion world simultaneously. Her image appeared on screens across dozens of star systems, her eyes glowing with stellar fire. People of the Galactic Dominion, she said, her voice carrying across space without any transmission delay. I am Elena Martinez, speaking for the awakened humans of Earth. Your leaders came to our world with threats of extinction. They destroyed our colonies and killed our people. They offered us slavery or death. She paused, letting her words sink in. We reject both options. We are the inheritors of the architects, and we will not bow to anyone. But we are not monsters. The display you just witnessed on Kethmore could have been your destruction. Instead, we chose to show you beauty. Elena's expression grew stern. This is our final warning. Leave human space. Cease your attacks on our people. Find a new path forward that doesn't involve the destruction of entire species. Do this and we will consider peace. She leaned forward, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of stellar fury. Refuse, and you will learn why the ancient races feared the architects. The stars themselves are our weapons now, and there is nowhere in this galaxy you can hide from us. The transmission ended, leaving the Dominion in stunned silence. Elena turned to Jake and Ben, who were watching from the bridge of Prometheus Rising. How long do you think before they make their decision? Jake checked his tactical displays. Based on their fleet movements, I'd say we have maybe 48 hours before they commit to total war. Elena nodded. Then we'd better use that time wisely. We need to awaken every human who carries the genes, and we need to build a fleet that can fight 100,000 ships. She looked out at the stars, feeling the vast network of human consciousness growing stronger every moment. Soon, humanity would be ready for whatever the Dominion brought against them. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened the children of the architects. Elena Martinez felt the universe twist around her as she was pulled from the bridge of Prometheus, rising into a place that existed outside normal space and time. The sensation was like falling through liquid starlight while being torn apart and rebuilt at the quantum level. When the disorientation ended, she found herself standing in a vast chamber made of crystallized time itself. The walls shifted between past, present, and future, showing glimpses of events that had happened and others that might yet come to pass. Elena Martinez, first awakened of humanity. A voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere at once. We are the evaluators, left behind by the architects to judge those who would inherit their power. 3 beings materialized before her, but calling them beings was like calling a hurricane a breeze. They were constructs of pure energy and consciousness, existing simultaneously across multiple dimensions. Looking at them hurt Elena's enhanced mind, even with all her new abilities. You have awakened the sleeping potential in your species, the Center Evaluator said. You have taken the first steps toward becoming what the architects once were. But power without wisdom leads only to destruction. You must be tested. Elena straightened. feeling the weight of humanity's future pressing down on her shoulders. What kind of test? You will experience the possible futures of your species. You will see what humanity becomes if it follows the path of the architects, who came before. Then you will choose. The chamber around Elena dissolved, replaced by a vision of the galaxy 1,000 years in the future. She gasped as she saw what humanity had become. Earth was gone, consumed to build massive ring structures around the sun. Humanity had spread across the galaxy like a disease, turning entire star systems into weapons and tools. Alien species knelt, in slavery, their civilizations reduced to serving the whims of their human masters. Elena watched in horror as human star annihilators casually destroyed planets that showed the slightest sign of resistance. Children of alien races were taken from their families and modified to serve as living computers. Entire species were extinct, wiped out because they had dared to question human authority. This is what the architects became. The evaluators, voice whispered in her mind. They convinced themselves that their power gave them the right to rule over all other life. They became the very evil they had once fought against. The vision shifted, showing Elena a different possible future. In this timeline, humanity had won their war against the Dominion, but the victory had cost them their souls. Elena herself sat on a throne made of crystallized star matter, her eyes cold and empty as she commanded fleets of enslaved alien races to expand human territory. The power of the architects corrupts, the evaluator said. It whispers that might makes right, that superior ability grants the privilege of dominance. Every species that has inherited this power has fallen to the same darkness. Elena felt sick as she watched her future self order the destruction of a world whose only crime was harboring refugees from human expansion. There has to be another way. Show us, the evaluator challenged. Prove that humanity can be different. Meanwhile, in normal space, the war was going badly for humanity. The Dominion had mobilized their entire military force, sending over 100,000 ships toward human space. But they had also deployed something new, something that terrified even Elena's awakened companions. Dr. Lisa Chang screamed as temporal energy washed over her ship near the Crab Nebula. The Dominion had fired temporal weapons, trying to erase human awakening from the timeline itself. Reality twisted around her as past and future collided. "Elena!" Lisa cried out through the quantum link. But she received no response. Elena had vanished from the network entirely, leaving the other awakened humans fighting alone against weapons that attacked not just their ships, but their very existence in time. Commander Ryan Adams found himself facing an even worse enemy. As he led the defense of the Mars colonies, his enhanced senses detected something wrong with the Dominion fleet. Hidden among the alien ships were vessels that seemed to exist partially in shadow, their hulls black as the space between stars. "What are those ships?" he asked Dr. Sam Wilson through the quantum link. Sam's voice came back filled with fear. "I don't think they're Dominion ships at all. The energy signatures are all wrong. They're feeding on something." Ryan reached out with his consciousness to touch one of the shadow ships and immediately recoiled in horror. The vessel was alive and it was hungry. It fed on life force itself, draining the energy from living beings to power its systems. "These aren't just aliens," Ryan broadcast to all awakened humans. "These are parasites. They've been controlling the Dominion from the shadows." In the crystal chamber outside time, Elena felt the battle raging in normal space. She could sense her fellow humans struggling against enemies that fed on life itself. The evaluators watched her carefully as understanding dawned in her mind. Dominion isn't the real enemy, is it?" she asked. "The Devourers have existed since the beginning of the galaxy," the evaluator confirmed. "They hide among other species, manipulating them into destroying any race that might grow powerful enough to threaten their feeding grounds. They turned the Dominion against you, just as they once turned the younger races against the architects." Elena saw the terrible truth now. The Dominion species were not evil conquerors, but victims themselves, controlled by parasites that had been feeding on galactic civilization for millions of years. The same parasites that had destroyed the original architects by turning their neighbors against them. So the test isn't whether humanity can resist the corruption of power, Elena said slowly. The test is whether we can break the cycle entirely. Explain. Elena felt the future timelines shifting around her as she spoke. The architects fell because they tried to rule through strength. The devourers defeated them by turning that strength against itself. But what if humanity chooses a different path entirely? She reached out through the quantum link, touching the minds of her fellow awakened humans across the galaxy. Even trapped in the crystal chamber, she could still feel their presence. What if instead of conquering the Dominion, we free them? What if instead of ruling the galaxy, we teach other species to awaken their own potential? The evaluator's form shifted, showing what might have been surprise. You would share the architect power with your enemies? I would share it with anyone ready to use it responsibly, Elena said firmly. The devourers win by keeping species isolated and afraid of each other. They lose if we all stand together. Elena felt the truth of her words resonating through the quantum field that connected all awakened humans. This was the choice that had faced every species granted architect power: rule alone or rise together. Show me how to reach High Commander Zethkalar, Elena said. If he's not truly our enemy, then maybe it's time he learned the truth about who has been controlling his people. The evaluator's form grew brighter. This is your final choice, Elena Martinez. Grant this power to your enemies and you risk everything. They could use it against you. Elena smiled. Then we'll just have to trust that beings fighting for their freedom are stronger than parasites feeding on fear. The crystal chamber began to dissolve around her as the evaluator spoke one final time. You have chosen the path the architects should have taken. Now prove that humanity can walk it without falling. Elena felt herself returning to normal space, but she was different now. The test had awakened something deeper within her, a connection not just to other humans but to the quantum foundation of consciousness itself. She could sense every thinking being in the galaxy now, including the alien minds trapped under devourer control. It was time to break the chains that had held galactic civilization prisoner for millions of years. The real war was just beginning, and humanity would not fight it alone. Elena Martinez returned to normal space with power flowing through her like liquid starlight. The evaluators had given her something beyond what any human had possessed before: the ability to awaken the architect potential in any conscious being, not just humans. She immediately reached out through the quantum link to her fellow awakened humans. Everyone, listen carefully. The Dominion isn't our real enemy. They're being controlled by parasites called devourers. We need to free them, not destroy them. Commander Ryan Adams was in the middle of a firefight near Mars when Elena's message reached him. Shadow ships surrounded his small fleet, their dark hulls seeming to absorb light itself. Elena, these things are feeding on my crew's life force. How do we fight them? By cutting their connection to their hosts, Elena replied. Watch and learn. Elena extended her consciousness across space to High Commander Zethkalar's flagship. The Vorthan leader was standing on his bridge giving orders to attack Earth, but Elena could see the shadow wrapped around his mind. Dark tendrils of psychic energy controlled his thoughts, making him believe that humanity was the enemy. With surgical precision, Elena reached into Zethkalar's mind and severed the devourer's connection. The alien commander staggered as his true thoughts returned for the first time in decades. What? What have I been doing? Zethkalar whispered, staring at his hands in horror. Memories flooded back. Memories of ordering the destruction of peaceful species, of following commands that had felt wrong but impossible to resist. Elena opened a communication channel to his ship. Hi, Commander. My name is Elena Martinez. You've been controlled by parasites for most of your life. Your people, your entire dominion, have been puppets dancing to their tune. Zethkalar looked at the screen, seeing Elena's glowing form. The humans, we were told you were a threat to galactic stability. We are, Elena said with a smile. We're a threat to their stability. The devourers have been feeding on galactic civilization for millions of years, keeping species weak and afraid so they can harvest life energy without resistance. Around Zethkalar's flagship, other Dominion ships began to change course as Elena freed their commanders from devourer control. But the shadow ships hidden within the fleet revealed themselves, opening fire on their former allies. All ships. This is High Commander Zeth Kalar, the Vorthan leader broadcast across the Dominion fleet. We have been deceived. The shadow vessels are not our allies but our masters. All units, target the Devourer ships. The battle that followed was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Elena and her awakened humans worked together to free more Dominion commanders from mental control, while the newly liberated aliens turned their weapons on the parasites that had enslaved them. Dr. Lisa Chang used her connection to the Crab Nebula pulsar to slice through a massive Devourer mothership, its dark hull splitting open to reveal the writhing mass of tentacles and feeding organs within. "These things are disgusting," she said through the quantum link. Commander Ryan Adams found that freed Dominion ships were joining his defense of Mars. Former enemies worked side by side as they realized they had been fighting the wrong war for centuries. But the real battle was taking place in the galactic core, where the largest concentration of Devourer ships had been hiding. Elena guided Prometheus rising toward the supermassive black hole at the center of the Milky Way, feeling the gravitational forces that held the entire galaxy together. "Elena," Kethvar's voice spoke through the ship's systems. "The Devourer's main feeding station orbits the galactic black hole. They use its gravitational field to broadcast their control signals across the entire galaxy. Destroy it, and you free every species they have enslaved." Elena reached out with her enhanced senses and gasped. The Devourer station was enormous, the size of a small moon, built from the corpses of 1,000 different civilizations. Dark energy pulsed from it in waves, carrying the psychic commands that had kept entire species in mental chains. "Jake? Ben? Are you ready for this?" Elena asked her original companions. Jake Sullivan checked his weapon systems, though Elena knew they wouldn't need conventional weapons for this fight. Ready as we'll ever be. Ben Cooper was manipulating gravitational fields around the ship, preparing to dive into the chaotic space near the black hole. "The gravitational distortions are incredible. How are we going to get close enough?" Elena smiled. "We're not going to get close. We're going to use the black hole itself." She reached out with her consciousness, touching the event horizon of the supermassive black hole. The forces there were beyond imagination. Matter and energy twisted into impossible shapes by gravity so strong that space and time bent around it. With careful precision, Elena began to manipulate the black hole's accretion disk. The superheated matter spiraling into the void started to form jets of energy that shot out along the black hole's poles. But instead of firing randomly into space, Elena guided those jets directly toward the Devourer station. The relativistic plasma hit the station traveling at 99% of light speed. The dark structure, which had survived for millions of years by feeding on galactic civilization, simply ceased to exist. The explosion was visible from 1,000 light-years away. Across the galaxy, the effect was immediate. On 1,000,000 worlds, alien leaders suddenly remembered who they really were as the Devourer control signals went silent. Species that had been enemies for centuries realized they had been manipulated into fighting each other. Elena felt the change through the quantum network. The awakened humans were no longer alone. Other species were beginning to develop their own versions of architect abilities as the psychic suppression fields failed. "Elena," High Commander Zeth Kalar's voice came through the communication system. "What happens now? How do we rebuild after so much destruction?" Elena guided Prometheus rising back toward normal space, feeling the galaxy awakening around her, like a vast organism shaking off a terrible dream. "We work together. We share knowledge instead of hoarding it. We explore the universe as partners instead of conquerors." She opened a communication channel that reached every world, every ship, every thinking being in the galaxy. "People of the Milky Way, this is Elena Martinez, speaking for the awakened humans of Earth. The parasites that controlled your civilizations for millions of years are gone. You are free to choose your own destiny." She paused, feeling the hope and fear flowing through the quantum network from countless species. Humanity offers to share what we have learned, to teach others how to awaken their own potential. but we will not force this gift on anyone. The choice is yours. 1 year later, Elena stood before the newly formed Galactic Assembly on a space station orbiting the galactic core. Representatives from hundreds of species worked together to build something the galaxy had never seen before. A true democracy where every voice mattered. Children from dozens of worlds learned together in schools that floated among the stars, sharing knowledge and friendship across species barriers that had once seemed impossible to cross. Some learned to manipulate matter and energy like the awakened humans, while others developed different gifts suited to their unique biology. Elena watched a young Vorthan girl show a human boy how to create music from gravitational waves, while a crystal-based life form taught them both to think in mathematical harmonies. The galaxy was becoming something beautiful, something the architects had dreamed of but never achieved. "The stars are burning," Jake Sullivan said, joining Elena at the observation deck. Elena smiled, feeling the warm light of a billion suns on her face. "Yes, but they're burning with hope now, not war. The galaxy is finally awake, and we're all growing up together." The universe was vast and full of wonders still to be discovered. Humanity had awakened to find itself not as rulers but as gardeners, helping other species bloom into their full potential. The stars themselves had become tools of creation rather than destruction, and in the distance, new galaxies waited to be explored by beings who had learned that the greatest power was not the ability to destroy, but the wisdom to know when not to use it.